Yo, what's good? Welcome back to the Heart Zone. I'm the host, McLaurin Hart, and we're going to talk some sports. Here's today's agenda. Today, we're going to go over some of the NBA trade rumors, a lot of the top guys that could possibly be moved, and then some of the NFL trade rumors, some guys that want to be paid. It could be requesting trades or they have already requested a trade. So, let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start off with the NBA with Russell Westbrook, who the Lakers brought in to be a durable guy. Because LeBron and AD were going out with injuries a few times. So they wanted a guy that could play, if not all 82, close to 82 games and keep them in contention if LeBron or AD ever did get hurt. What the Lakers didn't know is that's not what their biggest need was. I watched a series last year where they played the Suns in the first round where every time LeBron and Anthony Davis would drive to the basket, 4 or 5 Suns would collapse on them. What they needed most was a shooter. A blind man could have told you that. Every team was collapsing on Lakers driving. They didn't solve that problem when they brought Russell Westbrook in. It wasn't a good fit. Russ is still very good at what he does, but now they're looking to possibly move him after a year of a bad fit. So the 3 top trade destinations that I've been hearing about him going to so far is the Charlotte Hornets, the Indiana Pacers, and the Houston Rockets. To start off with the Hornets, how could they make this work? And why would they do this? The Hornets, they have a player in Gordon Hayward who they gave a max contract to. It hasn't panned out for them because Gordon Hayward is always hurt, and you don't want to be paying a guy max dollars if he's not putting up max production and he's not playing as many games. He plays very good when he does play, but it's not max level, especially if him not playing that many games. So the Hornets want to get rid of this contract before it goes too many years in and they just keep paying him. And they also have a guy in Terry Rozier that the Lakers really want added to this deal if they do this deal. They don't just want Gordon Hayward, which I think at this point, Gordon Hayward is injury prone, so I can understand why they don't want him with Anthony Davis, who has had a few injuries, and LeBron, who's had a few injuries in the past recently. So why would the Hornets be looking to do this trade? Well, the Hornets will be looking to do this trade because they just want to get rid of the Hayward contract, and Russ is an expiring deal now, so if they don't like what happens or if they want to buy him out, they could get rid of the contract for this year, and then they'll have Gordon Hayward's cap space off the book for next year as well as Terry Rozier. So they'll be freeing up pretty much a max slot to do whatever they want to do in that next offseason. So I see the Hornets being a possible destination. The Pacers are very similar to the Hornets, where they have a guy who they just signed for a very long extension, and Malcolm Brogdon, where they can't trade him to the offseason. But Malcolm Brogdon has been another guy who's missed a few games, so they could possibly be looking to make up for this long contract they gave him. But he is a very good player when he does play. He is still kind of young, so he still can be used in this rebuild if they want to keep him. But if they don't, they can move him. They can move Buddy Hield, who's a great shooter, but he's getting paid around $20 million. That's obviously not as much as you want to pay a shooter, especially somebody who hasn't been as consistent. But I think Buddy Hield just needs the right team to go to have a great career. But these would be the guys that the Pacers would be given to get Russ, just so they can possibly get that max contract slot. And you never know what could happen with Russ. They could end up buying him out, or they could try to see if him and Tyrese can coexist, and then Miles Turner demand to pay if they don't trade him as well. So that's another possible team that's in on Russ. And then the team that I'm thinking he could end up on is the Houston Rockets. They did discuss a deal before the trade deadline where LeBron, AD, and the Clutch Group really wanted the Lakers to pull the trigger on the Russ for John Wall trade. The Lakers didn't want to do it. The Rockets tried to fleece them, take their 2027 pick for the same guy they just traded Russ for, and they got a pick back. So they're trying to get 2 first-round picks off reverse psychology, I guess you could say. But why are the Rockets interested? They are interested because John Wall is a max contract guy. He's making almost $50 million, and it's been said that he isn't cool with agreeing to a buyout where he'll take less money for them to release him. So Russ is a guy, if they do trade for him, he'll be cool with the buyout to go to a more competitive team. And the Rockets can clear some cap space as well as clear a roster spot on their team. Christian Wood could also be a part of this trade if they wanted to, where they move him for THT. The Lakers were willing to do that. I think this is the Lakers like one of their only options to move Russ if they do want to move Russ. So do see this trade may possibly happen where they end up bringing in John Wall. I see that's the most likely. Next we have Bradley Beal, who a guy who hasn't requested a trade his whole career. He always says he wants to be in Washington. He's in trade rumors again because he is an expiring contract. He's about to be a free agent this offseason where he can sign a supermax deal for over $200 million. It is a great chance he returns to the Wizards, but it's going to be teams that, if the Wizards decide they want to move him, or if Bradley Beal decides he wants to leave the Wizards, because they are rebuilding right now. They did bring in Porzingis, but the talent level hasn't shown that they can win games. The Heat is the first team to watch out for Bradley Beal, because they have the assets to get the deal done. They want to bring Bradley Beal in because they're lacking a scorer. They have Kyle Lowry, who's a good scorer. They have Jimmy Butler, who's a good scorer. They have Bam Adebayo, who's a great defender, but they don't have a pure scorer that can go get a bucket whenever they need to. So how does this trade look? The Heat will obviously be trying to bring in a scorer, but they will have to give up their main asset in Tyler Herro, which is the only way to get this deal done. I think the Wizards will have a lot of interest in Tyler Herro if they do decide they want to move Bradley Beal. I think he's probably the most valuable asset that could possibly be moved, because the Heat are looking to win now. They have players who are over 30 in Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler and PJ Tucker. So if PJ's not involved in the deal, so they would need that pure scorer to come in and play with their defensive-minded team, and they would be a championship contender right away if they are able to make a move for Bradley Beal. So I do like the Heat as one of the top destinations right now for Bradley Beal. Another destination is the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid has already said that he would want to play with Bradley Beal if he does request a trade. Obviously, he hasn't done that. You're probably asking, how would this even work? The Philadelphia 76ers already traded for James Harden. They already traded Ben Simmons. They already traded a few picks. But now they have an emerging star in Tyrese Maxey, who's averaged over 30 points in the first 2 playoff games. He's been playing great this whole season, where he's just getting better every single game. So he's really raised his value as a key trade asset, where he could be a main piece and a big deal for a star player at this point. So if the Wizards do decide they want to move Bill, they will be definitely looking at Tyrese Maxey as one of the players to bring back. And who else would the Philadelphia 76ers throw in? They would have to throw in Tobias Harris for contract reasons to make it work. It would have to be a sign and trade where they trade Maxey and Tobias, and I'm sure a few other picks to bring in Bradley Beal to get that other scorer next to James Harden and Joel Embiid, where they have a formidable big three for a few years. Then the last team I can see make move for Bradley Beal to form a big three is the Boston Celtics. They don't have as many assets as the Heat or the Sixers, so they are at the bottom of the top 3 list for me. But if they do want to make a trade and the Wizards are okay with it, they have Al Horford to move. They have a defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart. They have Derek White, who's a great 3-and-D shooter. And then they have Daniel Theis, who will be a cap filler. And they also have all their first-round picks to move. So if they want to make a move for that, and the Wizards want to bring in a pick-heavy package where they could possibly get some veterans who can play now, the Boston Celtics would be the team to trade with, where the Celtics would end up forming the big three of Tatum, Brown, and Beal, where that would probably be unstoppable at an offensive level, regardless of who the other 2 players are on the court. So those are my Bradley Beal destinations. I do like the Heat being the number 1. The Heat are going to come up a few times because of their assets, and that takes me to my next player, Damian Lillard, who's been in Portland his entire career. He wants to win a championship in Portland. He's been playing very hard for Portland, trying to bring in other players to kind of pair up with him to maybe go to the next level, but he's over 30 now. He hasn't been able to bring in another star player to play with him. So now is the time where either the Trailblazers or Dame could say, hey, maybe this isn't working. CJ's already gone. They have a rebuilding team, so they could be looking to move Damian Lillard. And that Dame has said that if the Trailblazers do want to move him, there's nothing he will say about it, but he has not asked for a trade. So if the Trailblazers do decide to move him, the top 3 teams I have that will go after him are the Heat, the Pelicans, and the Raptors. Why the Heat? Well, the Heat, same with the Bradley Beal case. They have Tyler Herro, they have the assets, they have the contracts to match, and Duncan Robinson, PJ Tucker, Matt Strus, and the young player, and they have picks to move. So the Heat have all the assets to make a Damian Lillard trade work. He will fit perfectly on that team, even if they do have Kyle Lowry. He could play the 1 or 2 where they can interchange, where they're big enough with Jimmy Butler and Bam, good enough defensively where they can make up for a smaller backcourt. So I do like the Heat being the number 1 destination if Dame does request a trade, because they have Herro and the potential building block that he is. Another team I can see being in on Dame as a sleeper is the New Orleans Pelicans. Why? The Pelicans do have a lot of talent. They have CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and we don't know what's going on with Zion. I'm going to get more into that in a second. But if they do want to make a trade where they are bringing in Dame to pair back with CJ, you don't know what's going on with Zion. If he does want out, they could possibly do a trade where they throw in Zion cap fillers, and maybe the Blazers give something else back. I don't know where the value would be because it is very hard to gauge Zion's value right now. But the Trailblazers would love to obviously get Zion back if they are moving Dame Lillard. It would be another player to build around. He'll be a huge sensation around the city, and everybody will fall in love with the sport. So I don't see that happening, but the Pelicans are a team that could make a move if they wanted to, and they could pair CJ and Dame again if they wanted to. And then obviously you have B.I. there now and then, the young rookie Herb Jones, who's had a great year so far for them. So I do see the Pelicans being a possible sleeper team, and I have another sleeper team that I'm thinking could possibly make a move for him. It's the Toronto Raptors. As of now, they do have a very, very heavy wing team where they go with OG Anunoby and Pascal and Scotty Barnes and two smaller guards. So they could end up moving either Pascal or Fred VanVleet to maybe bring a more dynamic scorer to their team. They don't have really that go-to scorer who's going to give it to you every night. Fred VanVleet had a great season, so the Blazers could be interested in him. Pascal Siakam, he played great this few years ever since that championship. So they do have the assets to get the trade done. They have a lot of picks if they want to do that. They have the contracts to match. So I see the Raptors being a sleeper team. If they want to bring Dame in, this would bring them to a level where they can compete right away. They have the young Scotty Barnes who they're trying to build around too. So I like this Raptors team to possibly make a move for Dame. So we have the duo of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. This duo could be getting split up by the Jazz because they haven't been as successful as planned. They are still young, but the reason they could be breaking it up sooner rather than later is we keep hearing that there is a drift in the locker room where they maybe aren't vibing as well as star players should. They always come out and say that there is no problem, but it seems to be a problem on the court, and they're not winning. So it all started when Rudy Gobert had the whole COVID fiasco where he was just touching all the mics and everything and doing his own thing and act like COVID wasn't a thing. And then the whole pandemic started for the sports league when he ended up getting COVID and they had to shut everything down. So that's where the drift started. Donovan Mitchell has said that they don't have a problem. Rudy has said that they don't have a problem. They're friends, but it's not working. They're not winning games. They always have high expectations going into the season. They always fall short. So we're going to start with Donovan. I can see Donovan requesting the trade because he wants to get out of a smaller market, and if it's not working where he doesn't think he can win with Gobert, he will try to get out. So one of the teams I do have being on the top of the list for Donovan is the Hawks. This is my sleeper team. Why? Because they don't have a second option. They don't have a true second option, so to say. They have guys who can be a second option. They will be a second option some night, but you don't have that guy who's going to consistently be next to Trey scoring, giving you buckets. So bringing a duo of Donovan and Trey will obviously be very dynamic backcourt. It would be a smaller backcourt, but if you're able to be big at the other spots to make up for their defense, for them being smaller, I think the Hawks have a very good chance of competing with that squad. How could the Hawks make it work? Well, they do have John Collins, who, if the Jazz are interested, he would be the centerpiece of the trade. They would have to trade a lot of assets with John Collins because obviously he's not at the level of Donovan Mitchell. So it will probably be John Collins, a lot of picks, and a few young players. But if the Hawks do want to make this work, they are a sleeper team that can make it happen. They have the assets to do so. Another team that's going to be interested in Donovan Mitchell is the New York Knicks. He is from New York, so we can see why the connection is made there. And he's been in a small market his whole career. So going from Utah, one of the smallest markets, to New York, the biggest market in sports, would be a huge get for Donovan. You can say it's not all about the money, but money is going to play a huge part in him wanting to request a trade and maybe get to a bigger market. So how would the Knicks make this work to be able to bring in Donovan? I can see them offering a trade of possibly resetting and just having Donovan as their star player, where they trade Julius Randle and RJ and picks. Or they try to keep RJ the best they can and trade Julius Randle and picks and maybe some other young players like Quickly to the Jazz, where they get the assets to bring in Donovan Mitchell and they bring their dynamic star to the city, where the city will fall in love immediately with them. So Knicks have a good chance of bringing in Donovan Mitchell if they want to. It would take a lot from them. They do have the Mavs pick as well as their own. So I can see the Knicks possibly making a move for Donovan. The last team I have at possibly making a move for Donovan is going to be the Miami Heat. We all know why. They have Tyler Herro. They have the assets to make it work. It's going to be a lot like the Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard situation. So watch that real quick, and you'll see why I think they can make a move for Donovan Mitchell. Next, we got Rudy Gobert, the second half of it, who basically all the league shut down as soon as he started acting crazy, touching everything. So now the Jazz aren't winning. He's always getting brought up. He's always getting made fun of. I can't even search his name without even seeing memes all the time of him. So now the Jazz aren't winning, and this could be a guy they try to get rid of to maybe keep Donovan if they are able to keep Donovan. So if they do look to trade Gobert this offseason, there has been reports that the Mavericks and the Warriors are interested. And another team I think would be interested is the Charlotte Hornets. So how would it work for the Dallas Mavericks? The Dallas Mavericks will have to move probably Spencer Dinwiddie, and then another cap filler, and then probably move picks with it. They would definitely trade some picks with it to bring in Rudy Gobert. They've had one of the best offenses led by Luka Doncic since he's got there. One of the greatest offenses, not just during the seasons, but one of the greatest offenses of all time. So the one thing they don't have with that great offense is great defense. But bringing in a 3-time defensive player of the year will help that defense tremendously, where the Mavericks will be a top threat in the West every single year. So I can definitely see the Mavericks making a move for Rudy Gobert if they want to take that route. Another team I like for Rudy Gobert is the Golden State Warriors. They have said that the Golden State Warriors could be possibly interested in a Rudy Gobert trade. How could they make this work? Well, the Warriors do have Andrew Wiggins, who's making max money. They already have Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. So they have the wings and guard spots kind of set if they want to. They have Draymond. So if they want to, they can move Wiggins. Then they have the former number 2 pick and James Wiseman that they can throw with Wiggins to trade for Rudy Gobert, where they have a twin tower of defensive player of the year and Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert. And then you have the shooting around them needed because Draymond and Rudy aren't the best shooters. So you have Steph, Klay, and the guy who's really came true to himself this year, Jordan Poole, who can splash it from anywhere. This Warriors team has the potential to get very, very good, which is unfair since they're already a very, very good team. I can see them possibly making a move for Rudy if they really want to. The last team I have that's possibly making a Rudy Gobert trade will be the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets are in this discussion because they haven't had the big man that they wanted for years. They keep saying they want to bring a big man in. They tried to draft some. It hasn't worked out. They brought Mason Plumlee in. I think he's more of a backup center where he's still a good center, but he's more of a backup center. He's not a starting level type center. And they did bring in Montrezl Harrell as well to come off the bench for them. But they don't have that dynamic center to hold down the paint when they have mostly scorers on the wings. So how could they make this work? They do have that contract in Gordon Hayward, which is going to be harder to move. But they do also have Terry Rozier, which I think they would be fine with moving in the deal for Rudy Gobert. So if they did want to make this work, it would probably be Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, and a few draft picks. So that's the Hornets offer. Next, we have Zion Williamson, which we can't gauge what is going on with the Pelicans. He's not playing. He's been out all year. He never wanted to be drafted by the Pelicans in the first place. He was really hoping to get drafted by the New York Knicks, but the Pelicans ended up winning the draft lottery that year. It's been speculation that he's not good with the GM David Griffin, so we don't know if Zion wants to be in New Orleans. So if he does want to request a trade, which there's speculation that Zion is trying to push for a trade, there hasn't been confirmed reports of that, but if Zion does try to push for a trade and the Pelicans do grant his request, it will be the Knicks as the number 1 team. Obviously, he's been linked to them for a long time. How would the Knicks make this work? I think that's very hard because the Pelicans at the very least will want to start with RJ Barrett, and the Knicks aren't going to want to trade RJ Barrett for Zion because they want to pair them, and they know RJ Barrett is starting to do something special for them. So I think it would take Julius Randle and Quigley and a bunch of probably 5, 6, 7 first-round picks or pick swaps to go to the Pelicans for them to be able to get Zion Williamson. And the Pelicans will obviously have to throw in a few contracts to make it work because Zion still is on his rookie contract. So the Knicks are obviously the number 1 destination for Zion. That's who he's linked to the most. I can see it happening just because Zion wants to get out the small market. He wants to be a bigger market. He would have the whole city behind him. The city would probably explode if they heard Zion was coming there. So Zion isn't really linked anywhere else. So the other 2 teams that I put together that could possibly make a move for Zion is the Atlanta Hawks and the Detroit Pistons. The Hawks, like I said earlier, have the assets to make a trade for pretty much anyone that they wanted to. They have a lot of picks. They have a few young players. They have John Collins if they want to move him. So I could see the Hawks possibly making an offer where they try to trade John Collins, a lot of picks and young players for him, and that will give Trey that second option or the first option for the Hawks. That will probably be the best young duo you'll see with Trae Young and Zion Williamson. You will see a lot of lobs from them. Zion driving to the paint, being able to kick to a great shooter in Trae Young. That team would be very dynamic and very good if they do make that trade. So that's one of the teams I think should make an offer for him. And then also the Pistons. They have a young gun in Cade Cunningham, and they have draft assets to move if they want to go all in on Zion. So they'll have a top pick in this draft. They have young players. They have Sadiq Bey. They have other young players that they can move. So I do see the Pistons being as a possible trade candidate for Zion just because they have a high pick in the draft. And if the Pelicans want to keep the money down, they don't want to bring in a lot of big contracts, they can just go ahead and reset, take a younger player, and go towards the future. Take a few picks and go towards the future. And then the Pistons will obviously get the duo of Cade Cunningham and Zion Williamson, which would definitely turn the city of Detroit back to those 80s days when they had the Bad Boys, or 2004 when they won that championship. So I do like the Pistons as a possible destination for Zion.